Well, it's a gorgeous morning today, and I'm sat here with my good friend Lawrence Breakspear on the banks of the Middle Severn. We're not fishing today. The temperature's been too hot these last few weeks, so we're giving it a miss. But we haven't caught up for a long time, have we, Lawrence?
We haven't. No, we've been passing ships in the night, really, Paul. And we have a little chat, and then we must get together, and But here we are today.
That's it. So we've made the time today to try and get out and have a chat. And I was really keen to catch up with Lawrence and just do a little interview with him, really, about his fishing life. A Brummie boy.
Oh yeah, much so. Yeah.
Born and bred.
Yeah, born and bred.
Yeah.
In the heart of Birmingham as well. What we would have, I suppose, by today's standards, would have been deemed as the slums.
Right.
Very much only a few miles from the city centre. There was little fishing. There's more fish in the canal now where I lived than there was in those days. There were more dead dogs and stolen bikes, it's where it all started, and it started with the cheapest set of tackle that I think my mother could buy.
Right. And was it that on sort of the canals in the centre of Brum?
Well, my mother's brothers, two of them, were keen fishermen, and I'd heard them talk about it and seen them go off with their creels, and I never went, and I'd probably be about 7 years old, something like that. And this one Christmas I had the most cheapest, horriblest rod that was in a plastic pack, and it was made out of the same wire as a coat hanger, with plastic moulded rings and a plastic moulded reel with cotton for line and a pike bung for a float and a size 2 hook. But to me that was my first fishing rod, and I couldn't wait to get out. But because my uncles were pretty keen and knew what they were doing, and there was a fishing tackle shop literally 5 minutes walk from where I lived, it didn't take me long to really aspire to better gear and getting better gear. And the bit between having that cheap and nasty rod kit to actually having something decent was probably about a year. And typical, my trait then is no different to what I am now. Once I do something, I have to do it properly. So it became an obsession. I think I thought of the word obsession long before BB, but to quote him, the obsession grows, and it did grow with me. And a friend of mine that lived a few doors away was the same. It was Mr. Bird, who lived opposite me, started to take us out, and it developed from there. And even when I look back, I was always fascinated by the bigger fish. Whether we were fishing for roach and perch on the Birmingham Park pools, that's where we really fished. Or on the canals where we'd have a ride out with the guy who lived opposite the road. Opposite our house in the road, the street. That's where it all started, and definitely a seed was planted.
So you started off sort of more on still waters, but eventually you sort of graduated onto the rivers and the Severn.
The still waters was just easy for me because I lived within 20 minutes of Edgbaston Reservoir, which is still it's still there today. Good fishery today, big roach and bream and that. But gradually, as I became older and got to the, I suppose, 10, 11, 12, my parents started to consider where to go on holiday.
Right.
And I can remember my dad many a time coming home, and he'd met somebody who's got a caravan at Evesham or got a caravan at Bewdley, and the fishing's there and it's right on the banks of the river. And from that moment on, I was tuned in. And my parents would buy me, a pint of maggots or whatever, could leave me all day, and I'd be just happy. I wasn't abandoned. I was great, Then I went on to the rivers, and it was on a river that I first. And when I look back now, this guy must have been a devotee of Walker. I didn't know who Richard Walker was, when I was 10, 11 years old. But we had a caravan at Evesham.
Right.
on the Weir Meadow caravan site, still there today. No barbel there in those days, but there was a sausage factory, a processed meat factory, opposite the bank to the caravan park, and it didn't matter what time I got up in the morning to get my spot to catch dace and roach and perch. There was a guy there, always there before me, little trilby hat, and he was doing something that I'd never done, and it was ledgering.
Right.
And he would cast what seemed to be a long way, and looking back now, he'd got definitely a Mark IV Avon and a Mitchell 300
right, yeah.
and a triangular.
All the gear.
All the gear.
Yeah.
But it didn't impress me at the time because I didn't know what it was. But it was, you know, I thought about it. And then one morning I went down, and when I, you know, any good mister, he said, yeah, I've had a couple. He said, I've got them in the keep net. Do you want to have a look? And he pulled his keep net out, and there was 2 chub in there, and they must have been, I don't know, a minimum of 2.5, maybe 3.5.
Yeah.
One may have been 4, but by God, that was the turning point. Oh yeah,
yeah.
I wanted a bit of that, and from that moment on, again, the development started of doing things a little bit different, whatever I was doing, and yeah, and that was my introduction to targeting bigger fish and how it could be done.
Yeah, I suppose for most of us, the next sort of turning point in your, or the important point in your life, is when you learn to drive, isn't it?
Oh, it is, yeah, yeah.
And that opens up so many sort of opportunities, doesn't it?
It does, well, yeah, and you know, whether it's a car, you know, I mean, my first car was a minivan. But even prior to that, my first thing was obviously a bicycle.
Yeah.
I did the bicycle with the rod strapped to the crossbar, you know, from my house and to Cannon Hill Park, you know, just out by the Edgbaston Cricket Ground. Yeah. Then I progressed into a rally moped, which was like a hairdryer on wheels. But to me, it meant, even though it only got a top speed of 25 miles an hour, it meant I could go that little bit further without getting tired. And then I had a scooter then from that, a Lambretta.
You can tell we're in the Severn Valley.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There she goes, or there she blows. Yeah. She might give us a blow in a minute.
And this would have been sort of early days of the River Severn barbel, and that, I'm guessing.
Well, bear in mind the you know, the Severn barbel had been put in the mid-50s around the Bewdley area, and whilst there was barbel there at that time, I didn't know it. Yeah. Brown fish to me, I caught everything silver roach, dace, bleak, you know. Brown fish to me, bream and tench and carp and barbel was something for others to catch. It was always something I read about. Right. I would have cut my right arm off to catch a bream. I love the look of the bream, but yeah, there was barbel in the Severn then. It wasn't until about probably about 67, 68 that I first became aware of barbel being caught, and that was in Bewdley Town Centre. I actually witnessed one, and I can remember one kid saying, "Oh, he's caught a catfish," and you know, the barbels. Yeah. So that might have been a bit earlier, actually, come to think of it. It was about 66.
Yeah, so it was sort of roughly about 10 years after.
10 years after, and they were clearly there and in numbers to be caught.
Yeah.
But the you know, this phenomenon, even though we were fishing for roach and dace and chub at that time in the river, this phenomenon was going on before our very eyes, and we never knew it. You know, these fish were spreading. They were pushing upstream, they were dropping downstream, and it wasn't until I probably started, when I started reading the likes of the Angling Times and Angler's Mail, 1968, 69, that I then became aware, and again this thing in me that always wants to know everything about it. You know, like if I buy a car, even now, I want to know everything about it. Yeah. I'm a bit intense like that, and I was the same then. So I was a fisherman. I'm not only a fisherman, you know, I wanted to catch the bigger fish, and then I started to read the likes of Walker, Bill Keel. These are the days before Jack Hilton and that. You know, these were the proper old specimen on Tag Barnes, and I wanted to know all things, and gradually then I started to you know, I've always liked river fishing. I love lake fishing, still water fishing, but that little bit of the unknown with regard to a river, and you know, big chub, big bream inspired me. But barbel, by the end of the 60s, I started to fish for them.
Right.
And fishing for them in the most traditional way, which was like a light carp rod, a fixed ball reel, and ledgering with a lump of sausage meat or cheese. Yeah. And started to pick the odd one up, you know.
Yeah, and how did the sort of the barbel populations and the fishing sort of change from? Because my sort of first recollections of the Severn was probably, I was thinking about it around Highley area, kind of like the mid-80s.
Yeah.
Because my mum and dad had a camper van.
Yeah,
and we used to come up here barbel fishing, but obviously by then it was pretty well established.
Well, it was, and you know, and you got contests starting to be won with barbel. And that area, let's say from upstream of Stourport right up to Bridge North, you know, it was barbel country. Although it was very, very difficult to get a big fish. You know, if you had an 8-pounder, it was a real good fish. Yeah. And I treasured all of them. I mean, I'd go and wade out into the shallows and get, you know, 2-pound barbel on little bits of cheese or worm or something. Yeah. But yes, that whole thing was starting to grow. I'd evolved into I suppose a specimen hunter, as what we were known as in those days, a very young one with my mates, Roger Blower, Mickey Bowen and the like. And there was an advert in the Anglers Mail, and they were asking for local anglers, would we like to take part in a barbel survey, scientific barbel survey, PhD, run by Liverpool University. It's either in the Anglers Mail or the Angling Times, I can't remember. It may have been in both. And it would be a 2-year period and blah, 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 blah. Well, the one thing that caught my eye more than anything, this will be a 12-month year. Right. So you will be fishing through the close season. Yeah. And I thought, ooh, this sounds like a great scam. And I talked to the guys and I said, I was the secretary of the specimen group, and I said, do you want me to, you know, contact this? And me being me, and they said yes. I did. And lo and behold, we had a meeting with Peter Hunt, who was a student at Liverpool University, and we introduced him to the wild side of things. Wow,
salmon.
We introduced him to the wild side of things, being the rough kids that we were, and he was an educated young man who lived his cosseted life somewhere in leafy Surrey or whatever, you know, and we had we most definitely I had one of the best couple of years of my life. Right. Yeah. I learnt a lot. From us, you know, you being a biologist yourself, a doctor of biology yourself, you know these things. But to me, it was a revelation. I always remember, even now my age, you know, I can remember the first time that he cut a fish open. Yeah. On the campsite. We used to camp at Highley, just by the shipping. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And he got this mobile laboratory, and he put his knife, he dispatched the fish first. I'd caught this 4-pounder, and he said, we're going to do a parasite check. I said, all right, you know, what do we do? And he just got he got this very sharp knife, straight up, dispatched the fish, put the knife into the vent, and run the sharp knife up, prodded the stomach, and then woof! These things came out in their hundreds. These small parasites, little, almost like the size of a grain of a sweet nut, and orange. And to shorten the name, I can't remember the full name, but the scientific name, P. laevius, it was this parasite that infests barbel. Right. And they are a sign of heavy metals being in the water and pollution and so on and so forth. On the fish, can't it? Yeah, that's right. Well, they eventually can kill the fish. You know, they will live to a certain length of time. It's a cyclical thing. You know, the fish eat the shrimp. The shrimp's got the egg. The egg grows inside the fish, and around it goes again. And that again, that's stuck with me, and I can close my eyes now and see it all happening. And he explained, you know, how damaging it is to the barbel, but more importantly, what it tells him about the river.
Right.
You know, and the way obviously barbel feed and so on and so forth. So that period to me, did it develop me as an angler? Well, yes, because you're on a continual developing process. It was a great time, many drinks, many laughs, but also it was a great learning curve to me. That it said to me, there's more to fish than catching them.
Yes.
And that fueled that desire to understand them a little bit more.
Yeah, I can certainly sort of, understand where you're coming from.
Well, you
that,
could, yeah.
I spend as much time just watching fish and
Yeah.
playing around and swimming with them and all sorts.
Lovely.
As I do fishing for them.
Fantastic.
Yeah, just fascinated. Well, we're going to pause just for a second there because we've gone on for a fair while, and I'll just make sure the batteries are all right in the cameras. But hope you like that, and come back for part 2 in a sec.